Hello, hi YouTube. Today's this video, I'm gonna teach you guys how to make some bread from scratch. First you're gonna need some salt. As you can see right here, here's some salt that I grated. You're gonna need some flour, all-purpose flour, and you're gonna need some sugar. And you're also gonna need one packet of yeast, of instant yeast. And basically what you're gonna do is separate the wet from the dry ingredients. You're gonna open up this packet of instant dry yeast and you're gonna put it in your fork. You're gonna activate it. So the way that we activate it is that we take the yeast, we open up the package, and we pour it in a little cup or mason jar with some sugar to feed the yeast over lukewarm temperature water. So as you can see right now, I'm opening the packet of instant dry yeast, and I'm going to feed the yeast now. You understand what I mean? This process can get a little messy, but I'm gonna show you what you're supposed to be seeing. The next thing you want to do is get some lukewarm water. That's what I'm gonna do right now. So this is warm water that I'm gonna be pouring in this cup. What you want to see is some bubbles. So I'm mixing up the instant dry yeast into the lukewarm water and mixing it up like this. And then you're going to pour it in the mixing bowl with the 4 cups of flour. I'll put the recipe in the description box below after I'm done. So right now I'm pouring the flour with the instant dry yeast and the sugar all together, and then I'm gonna mix it up. But first, let me wash my hands. You always want to wash your hands in the kitchen when you're cooking, so you don't get bacteria and germs on your food. The next step, we're going to put salt inside the bread that we're making. I'll show you what it's like. See this pinch of salt right here? That's what we're gonna put inside the bread. Then make sure you have your apron on. Now I'm gonna add the salt. As you can see, here's the bowl with the flour, and here's the salt. Everything is mixed. Now what we're gonna do, we're gonna take our time and gradually increase water into the mixer. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of water as I go and as I mix the ingredients. I'm using a rubber spatula, so it's much easier when I do it. So take your time and mix the flour. The consistency that you want is kind of like sand on a beach. You just want to take your time with it. Don't overwork the dough, but make sure you take your time and mix it like this. Like that. I'm gonna turn on the light so you can see. Can you see it? Yeah, that's what you want. You want to mix the flour in. And then gradually add water to the dough. Take your time with it. You're gonna add water, and you're gonna take your time and continue to add more. I just grabbed more water to make it easier. And then continue to mix. Continue to mix the dough till it's nice and smooth. Don't be afraid if there's extra flour on your mixing bowl, because we're gonna need that in to the dough. You want it to look like Play-Doh, and I'm gonna show you what I mean when you look at it. You see how the flour is like this? That's what you want. Nice and soft and fluffy dough. Alright. Always make sure when you're mixing, if you have any extra flour, to scrape that off on the edge of your bowl. So take your time with it, and if you feel like the dough needs more water, you add a little bit more, but not too much where it's too wet, because we want a nice smooth dough. And when you get the right consistency, that's when you can keep on mixing it and mixing it and mixing it and mixing it and mixing it. I'm gonna add a little bit more flour, but I want to show you the result right now. This is the type of dough that you want. You want it to look like sand. You want it to make sure it's nice and soft. Right now when I touch this dough, it's gonna be extremely soft. The texture of the dough is like a soft pillow. That's what you don't want. You don't want it to be rough, you know. Nice and soft dough. Always want to make sure you scrape the edge of your bowl, because you have extra flour. So extra flour means what? Extra room. So you want to make sure you scrape everything off of the bowl so it's nice and clean and you're not wasting anything, because everything costs money and we want every single thing, every single penny, every single dime, every single nickel, because everything is money, everything is expensive. So moving on, you're gonna continue to scrape the edge of your bowl like this. Scrape the edge of your bowl, and then to make the dough more pliable, you add more flour. Now, if you see more flour on your rubber spatula like this, you can scrape it off and incorporate that into the dough. I'm gonna add more flour to make the dough more smooth. Now, if you're in a hurry, you can always prep this the night before and set it and forget about it. But today I'm gonna make the bread and I'm gonna show you how it's gonna come out. This recipe, if you're making it from scratch, is usually gonna take you around 2.5 hours, maybe 3. But I'm making it for my family. Alright, I'm gonna get more flour. You'll see why in a bit. So I'm gonna add a little bit more. You might not use all of it, but add as you go. So I just added a little bit more, and then I'm gonna start using my hand to incorporate everything together and mixing everything through. Like I said, you always want to wash your hands as you prep your food. Make sure it's easier. You can always add a little bit of olive oil or vegetable oil to make sure everything gets incorporated. So that's the last ingredient that I'm missing, because we added the flour, we added the yeast, we added the sugar, we added the salt, and we could also add a little bit of oil. You could use vegetable oil or you could use olive oil. So I'm gonna add a little bit of that in my bread. Now, you just need like a little teaspoon of olive oil. You might be wondering why I'm using a spoon. It's because I want to make sure that everything is mixed through before I start using my hands, and it gets really dirty really easily. I'm trying not to make as much mess, because when I first did this recipe, I did it when I was at home by myself and I was bored. I didn't have nothing else to do. So I just decided to make some bread just for fun. This is a really fun recipe that you could do with your friends and your family if you're bored. So I'm gonna mix everything through, but not over mix it, so the bread is rough and you want a nice bread. It's okay to have extra flour on the side of your bowl, because you're gonna incorporate that in the bread. So this is the consistency you want. A nice sandy dough. Like I said, it's supposed to look like sand on a beach. That's the texture. This is the color that you want to see. Now I'm gonna use my hand to kind of smooth it out, but I'm gonna put on some gloves so it's much easier. Okay. Um, let me go get some gloves. Okay. And when you're mixing the dough, you wanna do this. Just take your time. Don't rush the process. Take your hand like this, your left hand, and tell yourself that this is your hand that you're gonna mix the dough with. This is your hand that you're gonna hold the bowl with, and you use your palm like this, and you wanna work it into the dough. Take your time and constantly fold the dough over like this. I'm gonna show you the camera. I'm gonna show you the dough, but I'm trying to mix it in. Take your time and work your way into the dough like this. You're gonna constantly fold it and then lift up the bowl, and then fold it again. Take your time. It's okay if you make small mistakes, but it doesn't mean the result's gonna end up differently. Take your time. We're gonna constantly fold and fold and fold and fold and fold and fold and fold. You should be looking for a nice soft dough. This has been a recipe I've always wanted to do on YouTube, because a lot of people ask me questions on how you make bread. So this is a good way to show them and educate the people how you do it. Constantly fold, and fold. So now I'm gonna show you the consistency. Like I said, after you're done, make sure you wash your hands, right? Alright, so the next step is I'm gonna wash my hands again for the third time, and then I'm gonna go put the dough on the sheet pan. So I'm gonna show you each step. This is the dough when everything is mixed through. You see how all the flour is inside the dough? That's what you want. You want to make sure it's nice and soft and smooth. And a good indication to check if it's nice and soft is if you touch the dough like this and it bounces back to you. You see? Touch the dough like that. You see how the dough has no resistance? That's what you want. If you don't do it like that, you're probably doing something wrong. But I'm going to show you. Now I'm going to transfer the dough to a baking pan. You can bake it in whatever container you want, but this is how I'm going to do it. So I'm going to transfer it to the sheet pan so you see what it's like. The dough looks like this right now, but I'm not gonna put it like this in the oven because I need to shape the dough. And what you want to do when you shape the dough is this. You see how I have the dough like this? What you want to do, you want to take your hand, your palm, like this, and you're going to move the dough. You're going to fold the dough. You're going to do this. Take your hand like that and work your hand inside the dough like that. It's okay if you move the dough around, but you want to work your way into the dough like that. You want to fold the dough and shape the dough like this. You see what I'm doing? I'm trying to make a baguette. So you want to work your way into the dough. Be nice and gentle with it because you don't want to overmix it. You see how the dough is making a shape? That's exactly what you want. Just work your way in the dough. See how I'm not putting too much pressure on it? If you put too much pressure on the dough is going to be too rough. You want a nice soft dough so you have something easy to work with. And this shaping process only takes about like 10 to 15 minutes, but it's also a good thing to do because, you know, that's how you know your bread's gonna come out. Take your time, make sure you're gentle with your food and you understand what you're doing each step to get the results you want. We're almost done. We're almost to the finish line. See? I'm trying to show you guys every step so you're aware of everything that's going on. We're looking good. I'm not putting too much pressure on the dough because too much pressure, the dough will tear, and you don't want the dough to tear because you're gonna have to start the process all over again and repeat the same thing from the beginning, and that's gonna be a long day. So it's better to do things right than to start all over. Now we got a shape. Okay, I'm gonna show you what the shape looks like. You see how we did all that work? Look at it now. You see it changed? That's exactly the shape that you want. Something similar to this. Nice and soft, nice and smooth. What you want to do? Here comes the fun part. You know, after you make the shape, then you can take a knife and kind of make a design. Now I'm using a bread knife. What I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make a design going across the bread, and I'm gonna show you what it's like. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna make an indentation going across like this, but you don't want to do it too far into the dough because you'll tear the dough. And then I'm gonna do another one going across like this. Like that. So you see how the dough looks now. Like this, right? Now you're looking at something like this. So before I put it in the oven, I'm just gonna smooth it out again. Smooth it out again. And then let it sit. When you let the dough sit, all the ingredients will work with each other and be friends and get to understand. This is what you want, right? Boom. Now, this step that I'm doing is called shaping. We already did the mixing step. We already, put all the ingredients together. Now, we're gonna prepare ourselves to go preheat the oven. When we preheat the oven, we're gonna throw the bread in the oven and let the bread do its thing. But first, we gotta wash your hands. So now I'm gonna prepare myself to put this bread in the oven. But first off, what we're gonna do, we're gonna preheat the oven, and then after the oven is done preheating, you're gonna hear a beeping sound, and that's the indication that you need to go put the bread in the oven. Oven says start. What we're gonna do, we're gonna put cancel and start. We're gonna put it on bake because we're baking something. Then we're gonna press start. Let the oven preheat and get nice and hot. Now, a lot of people, they put cornmeal on the bread while the bread is at this stage. And the reason why they put cornmeal is because they want to get that nice golden brown crust on the bottom of the bread. Now, it's an optional ingredient. But at this point, I honestly think that we don't need to put cornmeal, but if you want, you can. I'm not going to judge you, I'm not going to question, but you can do that inside the bread. I'm just showing you an easy step. So, right now at this stage, we're just waiting for the oven to preheat, and then we're going to put this bread in the oven, and then we're going to see what it looks like when it's done. It's going to take a while, but the end result is going to be rewarding because it's going to taste like nothing you never had before because it's homemade. So this portion size of bread is for one family. I made one loaf today because I wanted to show you how it's supposed to look like. For anyone that has never made bread before, this is what bread is supposed to be like. I gotta answer this phone call. Okay, nothing important. I want to show you guys that anyone can be able to do this. This is not rocket science. It's just simple, easy steps that will lead to a result. Anyone could do this. And after the video, I'm going to put the ingredients in the description box below so that way you can check it out and understand the whole process behind this creation. So right now we're gonna let the dough rest, so that way the dough can double in size. You don't want to mess with it, you don't want to punch it, you don't want to kick it, you don't want to scream at it, you just want to let it sit and relax. Think of it like you're going to sleep. Like this is a bed, you just want to lay down and cruise. That's what you want to do with the bread. Just let it sit. Like I said, when you hear the beeping sound, that's when you know you need to throw the bread in. So we're just gonna wait. During this process, you can clean the kitchen, wash up some dishes, take out the garbage, do anything. Because when the bread is done and when you see how it looks, then you'll understand why. One more thing. Don't rush the process. Always know that everything in life is a learning experience, especially making this bread. A lot of people, they like to ask me questions and they like to tell me, oh, how do you make this? How do you do this? But they never want to take the time to understand the steps that I put into my recipes to get the results that I have today. So I think it's really beneficial that I have videos and that I show you guys how I do certain things, so that way you can get an idea of what you should be looking for when you make my recipe. Now this is my bread, right? It kind of looks like the picture that I drew when I made this recipe. So as you can see in the diagram, this is the bread, right? You see how I showed you the diagram? How you have the loaf and then the cuts in between, like right here. And that's what you want. Right now I'm gonna start washing up some dishes so that way I can knock this out. Because a good thing about cooking that you always should remember is that you clean as you cook. You knock two birds out with one stone. So I'm going to show you how we get this done, and then we can start baking the bread. For all of you guys, these are some dishes I'm gonna knock out. So hold on tight.